I think we're live. How's everybody going? I gotta check the app, make sure I'm live on the right page, because you never know. Banjo 3 and the Scahel is live, yes. How's everybody doing? We'll let a few people catch on before I start talking nonsense. All right. I should probably just play some music. How's it going today? All right. I have to do a little bit of adjustment on this, and hopefully the levels are okay. Hey, Larry. Hey, Ed. It's a gorgeous day in Galway. Again, it hasn't rained properly in months, which I'm very happy about, except I want to go fishing. And for fishing, I need rain. Hey, Jocelyn. The librarians are in the house. So I have a really great interview today with Mike Hanrahan from Stockton's Wing. So I'm excited to play that for you. Hey, Robbie Jones down in Spain from Track Dogs. How you doing? How you doing? But Nashville came out there. I'm from Galway. How's it going? Rhonda, rough day. Quarantine is getting to us. Yeah, I hear you. It's started to take on a little bit of an unreal quality. But we're doing okay. I think. I said today that I would do a tour of my banjo collection. Rose Oakley from Shanley, how you doing? So I'm going to start with this is my Clarion Elite. I was doing this at the weekend on a Zoom call with 100 banjo players, and I was trying to figure out where all the bits or where the camera is. And it's really hard because everything is the right way around, because it's not like a mirror. So anyway, this is a Clarion Elite banjo. I bought it in the year 2000, 20 years ago. The year that I brought out my first album, which I meant to grab a cover of that to show to you, because that 24-year-old self doesn't look much like me. It was an album called Pick It Up. And so I got this banjo the same year. So this was my road banjo for many, many years. When I started playing with Banjo 3, I took the back off it for lightness, put on a board instead. And then somebody pointed out on the Zoom conference during the week, Quinn Thomas in Chicago said, "Enda, what's the hook on your banjo?" And so I had a real MacGyver moment. This is a picture hook from a hardware store, and I might have taken off the other one. I need to take that one off because I don't need it anymore. But I used to play with a strap that I had to take the banjo off really quickly and move on to the next banjo or mandolin, because I used to play a load of different instruments. And the fastest way I could do it was to put picture hooks on the banjo, and I had loops at the end of the strap so I could whip it on and off. And I no longer need to have the strap on it. I just need to get a pair of snips and take it off. So this is an Irish tenor banjo. It's tuned like a fiddle, EADG or EADA as I tune it. I don't know how many. I'm going to drag that comment in. Why not? How about a little happen chance hornpipe? Okay. absolutely amazed that I remember that. It's a good thing it's an incredibly simple tune that I wrote myself in my head. But I literally haven't played that in 20 years. So there's going to be a little bit of bending over and stuff involved to get all of the bits and pieces. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different things. So I got that in the year 2000. That's a Clarion Elite. Some of you may have seen Tom Cusson here a few years ago. A lovely flask style, says Martin Howley. Yes, I'm famous. What's this one? You're famous. My 10-year-old twins saw this stream and exclaimed, "Oh, that guy." I meant to bring in a pair of sunglasses to put on so that people would recognize me when I picked up my banjo, and I forgot. This banjo is an Epiphone recording A. Oh, look this nonsense. I got this banjo when I was 11 years old from Tom Cusson, and I've had it ever since. It was my first real banjo. It's not in great shape. It's old. This would be kind of 1920s kind of stuff. I'm not a banjo anorak. I've got to say that. There's lots of people will know the month and the year and everything about the banjos. I'm not. I never was. Unfortunately. So the tuners on this are the original tuning heads, and they're old, and so it's really difficult to keep in tune. And it's an incredibly loud banjo. Should probably put it on this knee and keep it away from the microphone. But it's a very different tone to the Clarion. It's much brighter, much louder. Probably needs a bit of love at this stage and a little bit of playing and definitely new strings. But this is actually the banjo that's on my Pick It Up album. Not many people know that fact because I put a photograph of the other one on the front cover. So, moving through the years, this is another Clarion. And Tom Cusson made this for me, I'm going to say about 12 years ago. I can't remember. But this was the first or the second of the Clarion Setanta banjos, which was a new range that Tom and Finton were making out in Clarion banjos. And it's absolutely beautiful. And it was one of the first times I think that Finton did the Tree of Life inlay on the neck and on the head. So it looks gorgeous. And it has all the gold, and then it has a lovely bird's eye maple on the pot and all the nice bindings and everything else. And kind of an interesting tale, really, in that it was very much an experimental instrument. The walnut is unusual for banjos, and so it has a walnut neck, and it had a walnut tone ring on the inside. And walnut is a very soft wood in comparison to what is usually on would be like a mahogany or a bird's eye maple. And bird's eye maple is a very, very hard wood, and so it resonates much, much better than the walnut. So this was always an incredibly difficult banjo to play, and myself and Tom spent a long time trying to figure out what that was about. And eventually what we came down to is that the walnut is just a very heavy wood. It's quite soggy, and for banjo it just didn't resonate, so the banjo didn't vibrate the same way. So we replaced the tone ring, which is the wooden ring that's inside. We took out the walnut and we put in a bird's eye maple, and it sounded much better even just by doing that. So I wanted it to sound different to my other banjo, so I put a kind of a fairly dense a skin head, or it's probably a what's the word I'm looking for? Synthetic skin head on it, but it really dampens the tone. It makes it much, much warmer than the other two banjos. somebody says here that walnut is used a lot in. Nope, that's the wrong one. But that's a good one too. Hey, Robbie. Walnut is used a lot in old-time banjos, which makes a lot of sense because the difference in tone in this is it's much, much warmer and much deeper, even though it's tuned exactly the same as the other banjos. Breaking news, Enda Skahal is a skinhead. Well, there you go. That's just because you can't see the top of my head. I'll let you in a little secret. I don't know if Matthew's watching, but I had to I had to change the strings on this today because in a fit of quarantined rage, as 10-year-olds are perfectly entitled to do, he came in the other day and decided to put all my banjos out of tune, probably because I wouldn't let him play video games or something, and he broke one of the strings on this and then came in and looked very guilty and told me what had happened, and then I had to go and retune everything. And I had to replace all the strings on this as well, which wasn't a bad thing because they've been on for a long, long, long time. What strings am I using? So on my banjos that I take out on the road, I use elixirs because they last for a very long time. Other than that, I will be changing banjo strings every night or every second night, and that is just a pain. They probably don't sound as nice and as bright as if you could change to bronze wound strings every night, because they would be the warmest and the sweetest sound, but you couldn't be doing it every night. So elixirs, they're nickel wound, and the only one that I can't get in an elixir, now this is technical details, is the A string, and I use a D'Addario. Michael Duggar, you play the accordion, Michael. You want to know gauges and type of picks. Well, fair enough. Currently using a Dunlop Flow 60 pick. Now we're getting into the detail. And the gauges, 32, 26, 17 and 11. Now. Matthew Russell said is both horrible and very impressive revenge. I'm going to go with the very impressive. Michael Duggar played banjo for 25 years and then had sense and played the accordion. Okay, is there really any competition with Dave's hair? No. Not a hope in hell of competing with Dave's amazing hair. Shannon Beck. Oh, here's a good one. What would you recommend for first decent banjo that could be used for performing? You do need to spend a bit of money if you want something decent. If you're playing banjo for fun, then you should start out with a fairly straightforward $400 or $500 banjo, and that will get you going. And they're usually, to be fair, they're usually Chinese instruments that are set up by either Tom at Clarion banjos or something like Deering banjos in the US, and they will get you going. But you don't want to jump in and spend $2,500 on a banjo because that's a lot of money. Snort was cute. Did I snort? I snort and I'm laughing. Thanks for that, Nicole. Now this banjo is brand new and it's made by Neckville Banjos in Minnesota. Tom Neckville, who made my banjo that I have on the road, which I'll show you in a minute, asked me if I wanted to collaborate with him on the design of a banjo. So what's unusual about this banjo is that there's no metal or very little metal in it. The other banjos, like the walnut one, weighs about 8 million pounds. It is ridiculously heavy. The Clarion is quite heavy. And the reason it's heavy is that there's a lot of metal in it. This one is composite and wood, and so it weighs almost nothing. Now this is brand new. It looks like a neckfill, Robbie, because it is a neckfill, and it hasn't been played much. So it's going to a good home in Ohio fairly soon, and it'll get a lot of play in there, which is good. And every instrument needs to be played. I love that my green screen is making the inlay disappear. How awesome is that? I got a hole in my banjo. So this is what's this maker again? Let's get this here. Sorry now for being. So that's Nechville, Nechville, and Tom is in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. That's thanks Kelly. Kelly's straight in there. So that's that banjo. Now for the oddity of the bunch. Now this definitely won't fit on the screen because it's too long. How many banjos do I bring on tour? I bring one banjo because one is too many. I couldn't be bringing any more than one, particularly because I travel from Ireland, and the way we're currently touring with rentals and that kind of thing, we don't have the facility to bring a whole bunch of instruments. Though if there's anybody watching that wants to buy Wee Banjo 3 a van, we will accept it. And we'll put your name on the side if you wish. So there you go. We've never said that before, but we've been talking about it for ages. So now, this is my Nechville banjo. This is what I play on the road. The banjo geeks are going to give out to me now because technically this is a plectrum banjo. And I'm not getting into what a plectrum banjo is versus a tenor and all of that because it's hard going. The two standard banjos in Ireland are a 19 fret, which is what I play. There are 17 frets, which is what's known as a short scale banjo. And then this is a 21 fret banjo. But what I asked for and what I got when I spoke to Tom was something that has the shape of a Irish tenor banjo, but has the neck of a 5-string banjo. And what the long neck does is it gives it much more resonance, and it's this beautiful banjo. So I hope that the resonance is coming across. Irish banjos, the 19 frets, are quite short in the resonance. They don't ring out very much. And what I wanted, because what Wee Banjo 3 was doing was becoming very song oriented. The Irish banjo for backing up songs or the old-timey sounds that we were producing, it just really wasn't sitting into the mix properly. So I ordered this banjo from Tom Nechville. I wanted it to be very light, which it is. It weighs very little. The neck actually weighs more than the body, which is very unusual. There's a synthetic skin head on it that's colored, which gives it that old-timey look, which is beautiful. And the one thing I wanted, which was funny, is I really didn't want a gold-plated banjo with diamond inlays and mother of toilet seat and all that stuff, because it's a real thing with banjos is to make loads of bling and loads of and I was so sick of seeing banjo after banjo that was plated in nickel and plated in gold, and was like, how many sparkly things can we put onto it? And I said to Tom, I want a banjo that's essentially black and has nothing on it. And so Tom was making it away, and then he says, so he dyed all the wood black. And he said, what about the inlay on the neck? And I was like, I don't mind. What do you have? And he said, I have turquoise. And I was like, ooh, I love turquoise. So that's how I ended up with a bit of bling on it. And you can see, if we get up close enough, that there is an Irish salmon inlay on the banjo, which is very pretty. And this is tuned a tone lower than a standard banjo. So it gives you that really deep, throaty sound, and it's absolutely fabulous. Have you ever played with Steve Martin? No, I would love to play with Steve Martin and chat to him about banjos. That would be wonderful. So there's a lovely deep growl to this, and for that kind of old timey. It's lovely. I I love playing it. It's beautiful to play acoustically. It resonates really nicely, and there's a lovely tone that comes off it. And I mean, Ohio is in the house. Did you get those glasses purposely to match? I did. Not. Okay, so that's all my banjos. But I have one last thing to show you before we get on to the wonderful interview with Mike Hanrahan. And this is my Resonator tenor guitar that I bought in Nashville a couple of years ago. I don't know, Dave. That's a good question. What a shellac head, for those people who are wondering what that is that on the banjo heads, what some makers do is they put a varnish finish on the inside of the head, and it gives it the color. And it also dampens the head so that you get some of that lovely deeper tone. It kind of takes that pingy sound out of it. JT Long is wondering, wins on your new album, is it 1 or 2 banjos? It is 2, because Martin Howley is a fantastic banjo player and has won many more All-Ireland championships than me, because he knew how to play for the All-Ireland to win it, whereas I was an idiot and I kept getting disqualified. So I went to Nashville a few years ago, and we were in Carter's Guitars, and I was on the phone to my wife, and I picked this up when I started playing it, and I was like, Jill, I need to ring you back. And I walked out the door with this, and I absolutely love it. Well, now I'm after getting the right education. Shellac is made from crushed beetles. I want to see that process on YouTube. This is when I'm really feeling the blues. So normally when I get to take this out, I go to a pub near Headford in County Galway, and there's a few members of the Whileaways that do a show there, a session, really a jam session on a Thursday night, and God, we miss that. But it's loads of Americana songs, Gillian Welsh and Dave Rawlings, and a bunch of their own songs, and I bring this, and you just got all guitars and double basses, and all the lights are off, and it's just really cool. And there's times like this I wish I could sing and I'd burst into something mad. Anyway, the name of the shop in Nashville is called Carter's Vintage Guitars. Martin Howley's online tonight with the breaking news. And this guy crushes the Beatles. Yes, Gail has a good point here. We need some new merch so we can continue to support you. We are in the process of getting some new t-shirts made and designed. So there will be more updates on that. I did feel like I had something to say, and now I can't remember it. But anyway, here we are. Okay, so during the week, I got to talk to Mike Hanrahan. Mike is a songwriter, a singer, guitar player, a chef, and now a published author. I played with Mike for a couple of years when the band Stockton's Wing had a get-together many years after they had broken up, and it was an incredible experience. They were a hugely influential band in the 80s in Ireland, the 70s and the 80s, and they were absolutely brilliant. And me and Mike had a great chat. Literally could have talked to him for hours, because just one of those musicians that has such a huge career that spans such a length of time and so many different artists and so many stories that we could have gone on for hours, but we didn't, sadly. But here is the interview with Mike Hanrahan, and I'll be online here the whole time chatting with you on the text and comments, so I really hope you enjoy this. So I'm live in Galway with Mike Hanrahan. Mike is in Dublin, very, very famous and very well-known singer and chef and guitar player. Probably best known for his work with Ronnie Drew and with Stockton's Wing, and most recently with Leslie Dowdall. if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That didn't sound very good. Uh, did I cover everything there, Mike?
And Eleanor Shanley.
And Eleanor Shanley. And what was the Tumbleweed album? Tumblewoods?
Tumbleweed was the first band I was ever in. Well, no, first professional band I was in with Maura O'Connell. That was back in the late 70s when, just after I left school, I had been playing guitar as a solo artist in around Ennis and that, and then I teamed up with Maura and we set up a duet called Tumbleweed, and we did our first Irish tour of the folk clubs, because in those days the folk clubs were very popular gigs, and the folk clubs were organised by a central committee. And Joe Galligan he was a guy in Clare. He had a folk club in Crusheen. So every year they met 3 or 4 times a year to organise gigs. So whatever artist was on tour, if they came in from England or America, they could sneak their way around the country one night after another, and they all looked after each other. Now, Joe always used to say that the meetings were more like they'd have the tours organised in 5 minutes and then they'd go on the tear, all the folk club organisers. But it was a really interesting way they did it. Everyone supported the live music. There was Ken Horn down in Clonmel. There was a folk club in Carrigan Shannon. They were all over the country and just organised. So it meant that you had no night off on your tour, and your trips were really easy trips, because you go from, like, you go from Clare to Limerick to Galway. It was great.
The folk club scene was famous at that time, but has it died out?
Oh, I don't know if there's a folk club scene at all now. There's a few clubs. I think there's one in 6 Mile Bridge I know of. I'd say there's a few. I think what's happening now is there's little venues around the country, little churches, and there's little rooms at backs of bars run by people who really love music. And myself and Eleanor have certainly covered quite a lot of them. And that's very healthy, because it's like the local community are still coming to the gigs. So it fit maybe 200 people. And because the gigs are kind of rare enough, they might only run 2 gigs a month. Everybody comes and supports. So it's a lovely circuit, gorgeous circuit. Great for someone who just wants to sing songs and play and have a chat and interact with the audience. And there's no noise.
Yeah. And so that was your starting point, was folk clubs. And what was it like then to jump into Stockton's Wing, which had established itself at that stage, and then you came in as a singer with incredible songs, and it skyrocketed. I mean, such a hugely influential band that still has a footprint in Irish music.
Yeah, I'm very proud of what Stockton's Wing did, and I think more so since I left the band, like, we're back doing a few gigs now, but I was away for many years doing other things, and you're able to look back at the band and appreciate what we did do, and how dedicated we were to our craft, because we really literally ate, slept, drank our way through Stockton's Wing every morning, noon and night, and the whole thing was centered on getting the songs out, getting them written, getting tunes written, getting the tunes arranged. And we would spend days and days and days inside in a rehearsal studios in Dublin, and then we'd present our arrangements. So we were just dedicated to the sound of Stockton's Wing. We were never driven by money. We were never driven by that, looking for fame or anything. It was just about making good music and getting out there and having good crack with the gigs, and that's what we did. We recorded quite a few albums, but we had some great times. We toured all over the world, and it's so nice to hear young bands now tagging the band. Even to hear you saying how influential the band is, that really means an awful lot to us when we hear that, because it makes you feel kind of, you've done something to the music, and people appreciate it. And I love the younger bands. I love working with the younger bands now. Stockton's being meet a few of them, like Moxie and those. And we connect. And then there's a couple of young musicians in the band. Tara Breen is with us. I mean, and she was kind of born and reared in the Stockton's Wing tradition, so she just fitted in perfectly to the band. And Carol Lynch, another great player, so it's good to connect.
Yeah, you see, Stockton's Wing comes up all of the time in my world, because anytime I'm asked about banjo and the history of the banjo and banjo in Ireland, and it's a very unusual instrument in that the proponents of banjo at the very early days weren't in traditional music per se. And so Kieran, your brother, is always mentioned. But the banjo became really popular in what was essentially an Irish rock band, or a Celtic rock band infusion, which was what Stockton's Wing was. And then you have Jerry O'Connor, who was very influenced by bluegrass. And going back before that, it was Barney in the ballads. So having a conversation about traditional Irish music and the banjo, the three forerunners of Irish music and Irish banjo were actually not in the tradition at all. And Kieran made the banjo very, very cool, particularly that headband.
Yeah, he was pretty cool, all right. I love throwing him the odd video when I find one online and send it over to him instead. Look what you were like once upon a time. And interesting that his greatest influence was Barney Mcgann. Barney had this amazing piece of music called Barney's Mozart. It was his stage piece, and it was a really intricate banjo piece. And I think it was an old Mozart tune or something that they had fancied up a bit. But that was Kieran's party piece then, because he learned that from banjo, the playing of Barney. And of course, when we met the Dubs then, the Dubs became our great friends. At a very early age, we kind of hooked up the Dubs, and Barney, and particularly Ronnie, they were great pals to us as well. So we were meeting our heroes. And I think Kieran he would have come from a very strict traditional background, whereas I didn't, even though the family were steeped in traditional music. But I kind of was singing Leonard Cohen at 13 or 14 years of age. Kieran was doing all the flares. And I think for him to move out of his comfort zone of the trad and get into that and rocking it up a bit and dancing, like he moved on stage, And I mean, when you hear him now on Kaylee House, you think, just did he do all that? And he did.
He did.
He was a bit of a rocker, yeah.
He sort of cleansed himself with his solo album as well, which was as traditional as he could get.
That's right, yeah. It was way back, yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a kind of a ritual. It was like a confession sort of
thing. Yeah. I'm sorry, mea culpa.
So you had some huge hits. A Beautiful Affair, I think, being the foremost of them.
The mountains seem closer than before, and you wonder why. You know in your mind that there's no good to hide. The only way is living to survive. It makes you feel alive. See all the doors swing open, your life's unfolding before your very eyes. Such a strange affair. Walking around, coming to the sound, forget you're down, feel the air, a beautiful affair.
It was great. We were very lucky. I only write kind of pop ballads and songs, and so I never sang trad songs, and so for me having a band to sing my songs was really great, and they took on all the songs. But what the catalyst was, PJ Curtis produced the albums at that time, and PJ was very innovative in his thinking. He was very, very forward looking in where he saw the music going. And he found in us a vehicle, but he also found in us a bunch of guys who were willing to go anywhere that was for the good of the music. And PJ was an honest producer. He had honesty about his music. So we gelled together in the studio and we created this sound. And then the next stage was we found Radio 2, RT Radio, FM, were just coming on the scene, and they supported us. So, and you know yourself, it's all about getting the airplay, getting the music out there. And as the guys in RT used to say, you keep producing the hits and the songs, and we'll keep playing them, And once we think they're good for our audience, and they really jumped on Stockton's Wing. So it was like, for us, those few years, I suppose, from 1980 to 84 were just perfect years where we met up with a lot of people, creative people, and it worked.
Yeah, and you did some huge gigs, stadium gigs, and I know James Brown was in the mix at one stage as well. Like, what was the biggest show that you ever did?
Well, all the festivals were huge. The biggest gig for us personally was Sammy Davis Jr., I think, in Lansdowne Road. We did a private party with Sammy Davis. He was over with Frank Sinatra and Liza Minnelli doing the ultimate event, it was called, and they were doing 2 nights in the old Lansdowne Road. And there was a private party the night before, and we were invited to play. And so was Brendan Grace. Actually, Brendan was invited, and Brendan went down then because Sinatra. He just basically flagged Sinatra during his entire. He used to call Sinatra. He kept used to call. He used to call Sinatra Perry Como. That's in his crack. He was referring to Perry all the time. It was so funny, but Sinatra fell in love with him, and Brendan ended up moving out to America on the strength of that gig, and he built a whole career in America on it. But we did this. We were doing music, and Sammy Davis came over to us and before the gig and talked to us, and then afterwards he came over and he says, "I really would love to if you guys come and join me on stage tomorrow night." And he says, "I'll tap dance," and it was the beginning of 2 amazing days, and I've said it to several people. Even when I wrote the book, I did a special piece for this because it was a pivotal moment for me in my thinking and how I approach life. Because when I thanked Sammy Davis Jr. on the Sunday night, he was in the dressing room with us, and we were chatting to him, and I was kind of, "Yeah, you have no idea what this means to us. We're so thrilled with all this." And he just stopped me and he says, "Mike, life is a two-way street. You know, never forget that." He said, I'm here in Dublin and I've got the best band I could have on stage with me. That's good for me," he said. "And I know I'm good for you. So it's a two-way street." And I've never forgotten it. And I use that in my life. I teach young musicians. This is what it's all about. In life, it's helping each other out. So I guess that's a very long-winded answer to your question. That was probably my favorite of all of them, of the big gigs.
Yeah. And so why or how did the Wing end up winding up then? I mean, when you think of the success, it's something that could have rolled on and on.
I don't think I could. I think you have well, for me, I had 94. We did an album in 1990 called The Crooked Rose, which is more of an acoustic based album produced by Bill Whelan, and I loved that album, and it was a great vehicle for my songs. At that stage, I was heavily into writing songs, and I was delighted with that album. And then we were just doing the same circuits all the time, and I was getting tired. I personally was getting tired. The gigs were getting later, and I needed to move on. And then I had a whole bunch of new songs written that I just didn't see them as Stockton's Wing songs, and I wanted to go and explore a solo career. And I was offered a deal in Germany by a record company, and that was my move. And it was time for me. The lads kept going for a few more years, but I think they too had petered out for them as well. And I just think we had our day. We had maybe 8 really amazing years. And now, since we're back together again doing a few gigs, we're enjoying it more than ever because there's no pressure. We don't want to take over any world anymore. You know, we want to make the one we're living in a really nice place to live in, and we want to enjoy our gigs, and we get a chance. Morris comes back sometimes for a few gigs. Cooney has played with us a few times, so it's a really where we've come now is much nicer.
Yeah, I mean, I got to experience the fervor which I hadn't anticipated, and I think it was it 19. No, what year was that we played?
2000.
2009. Is that when we played in Ennis? Is that right?
We played Ennis, yeah, and you played with us in Scotland as well.
Yeah. The first one in Ennis, and there was two. There was one, and then there was one the following year. But the first night in Ennis was insane. I've never experienced anything like it.
Oh, the home gigs are amazing.
There was that big comeback gig, and I had learnt the entire set. I was in the seat of my pants. From my own point of view, I was thinking, my God, I'm sitting in here instead of Kieran Hanrahan, and it was a huge deal. But the intensity in the room was insane. I've never experienced anything like it, and I'll never forget it. I didn't sleep for about 2 nights afterwards. Just with the adrenaline was so high. It was
It was
incredible.
huge.
Yeah.
It was great. The Ennis gigs are always great. But I think now the gigs that we do, the people who are coming to hear us are the people who's come to hear us years ago, and they're bringing their kids and sometimes their grandchildren. I like when we used to play on back in the 80s. I mean, there was a gig every night of the week, and you were playing to 2,000 people every night. Like that's how big it was back then. And we toured in UK, we toured America. Lots of them we were spending maybe 6 to 8 weeks at a time in America touring. So there was a lot of people who tuned into the Wing, and now when they get a chance, it's a kind of a nostalgia vibe for them as well. And there's a lovely connection in at the Wing gigs, and particularly in Ennis, because we have been really blessed with always an amazing home audience. They've supported us, they're proud of us. I just love the Ennis gigs. They're so good.
I'm fascinated with the concept of touring the US pre-internet, pre-Google Maps, without being able to book a hotel online a half an hour before arriving. I mean, it just boggles the mind how, because it's such a huge country, how you get from A to B without getting completely lost. What was that? Was that crazy? What was that like?
It was wild. With a great agent called Herschel Freeman. He was in Raleigh in North Carolina, and he was an amazing agent. And he worked really hard for us. And but you used to buy these books of flight tickets, and like they were actually called. It's not really kosher now in these days, but they were called flight you die tickets. That's what they were known as. And you get a book. It was like a book of raffle tickets, and it was you pick Northwest Orient were the crowd we used, and I think that their hub was in Georgia. So wherever you flew in America, you had to fly through the hub. That was the deal. You get really cheap flights, but the deal was you had to go through. That was the pain. So I mean, sometimes I used to say sometimes if you were going from New York to Boston, you might have to fly to Georgia first to get back up. And that's how it was done. And we built. There was a great circuit of a theatre circuit there, and you know that yourself is still there. The theatre circus was a gorgeous circuit, and that's what Herschel had clued into. And then the bluegrass festivals, some of the Irish festivals. We played the first, maybe the second or third Milwaukee. We played that a few times. It was great. And then we had Tommy Mcgann, our mate from Doolin. Tommy had a pub in Doolin, and Tommy was a crazy lunatic, wonderful, gorgeous, brilliant friend and man, amazing guy. And he moved to Boston. He set up a pub in Boston, and then he brought us out. And then he had a place in Cape Cod, so he was kind of our agent. And Tommy was such a lovely. He died very young. He died when he went home a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, 15 years ago, in a car accident. But Tommy would collect us at Logan Airport, and one day it might be just the pickup truck, and with room for 2 or 3 in the front, and all the rest of it with the instruments in the back, piling in, driving it down out from Logan out to Cape Cod, and then another he could arrive at a limousine. It was so we got by, and we made loads of friends, and well, I loved touring in America, and we toured. Geez, we did most of the states, and we used to do Canada as well. The Edmonton and Calgary folk festivals and all that. So yeah, we loved it. I loved working over there.
Yeah, we love it. It's a great country to tour.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get back. So that the Stockton's Wing finished up for you. You went solo for a while, but then you started to tour with Ronnie Drew.
Yeah, well, I did that in 2006. I was with Finbar Fury for a while, and I really enjoyed that. Working with Finbar was such a joy, because he's such a professional man on stage and performer. So I enjoyed playing guitar with him. And then Ronnie, I've been friends with Ronnie for so many years, like personal friends. And he rang me. He said he had this one-man show he was working on. Would I come out and have a listen? And he said, I might need a guitar player. Do you know anybody who's looking for a gig? And I said, as it happens, I do. So I went out to the house, and I always remember he sang Raglan Road, and he said, you take a break there now, like a solo. And I was just a rhythm guitar player. I never took breaks. It's a different technique. I had no idea how to do it. And of course, my fingers were tongue-tied and twisted, and they were hitting everything except the notes that were in the chords we were playing at the time. And it was a disaster. And I knew by looking at him, I looked over and he was kind of, what's going on here, you know? And I just said to him, give me a few days, Ronnie, and I'll get this together because I really want to do it. So he said, fair enough. And I was always slagging for years afterwards that he made me a great guitar player, because he did. He set himself such a high standard of performance. And I knew that if it was just the two of us on stage, I had to improve my playing. So I spent literally 5-6 hours a day training, teaching, learning how to be a voice on the stage, because it was only two of us. And we had 10 amazing years together, really gorgeous years. And we toured everywhere. We were a recorder. I produced a few albums for him. And then in the middle of it, we met Eleanor, Shanley. And the two of them produced this amazing, iconic single called A Couple of More Years, a song by a man from the guy who wrote Sylvia's Mother. That Sylvia's Mother said, I forget what they were called. And he wrote this amazing song called A Couple of More Years about an old man talking to a young girl. And it was ideal, and it was a huge hit. So that guaranteed us a good few tours in Ireland and in the UK. But yeah, I loved working with Ronnie. He became my closest friend ever in the business. And I often say, when I talk about him, and I talk about him a lot at my gigs, particularly at my book gigs, and I say he was my dad, he was my brother, and he was my son, all in one go. And it was vice versa, because we just connected. There isn't a week goes by. Well, since I did this show online, and I always talk about him. He's with me all the time. He's even behind me on the wall. I never can see him there.
Yeah.
He's there with me. I was on my shoulder all the time. Himself and my real dad, they're always there with me at all the gigs. Yeah, so Ronnie was an incredible performer.
Yeah, because he's the defining voice of Irish song, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think his voice is great. And you know, and when I started gigging first, we did Andrews Lane in Dublin. I think we did about a 10-week run or something. It was phenomenal, like, for the show. And Ronnie used to always introduce the show, saying, especially on radio, he'd say, I'm doing a one-man show with Mike Hanrahan. And like he was always so inclusive, always inclusive. He never let anything go by. If we were doing the Late Late Show and Pat Kenny was introduced, now we have Ronnie Drew. Ronnie's we have Mike Hanrahan as well. He was always. But I remember the early nights in Andrews Lane, and we'd be doing. He'd be singing McAlpine's Fusiliers. He'd be doing the opening. It was in the air, by the way, and I'd close my eyes and I'd be drifted right back to my own house, because we were reared in their music, and I'd be back there as a kid listening to the Dubliners, and then you kind of open your eyes and say, wow, and I'm here beside him. That's how much it meant to me as an artist, as a musician, was to be here, and then to know how he performed and how he dedicated his life to the gig, right up to the last gig. When even we did a gig in Dublin, his second last gig was on Paddy's Day in Dublin, and even after that, he was talking about changing things, even though he was really ill at that time. So he was constantly moving and trying to make it better for the audience. Powerful man.
When another little drop on the heart of the railwood Dicey Riley. Down with the railwood Dicey Riley, she has taken to the shop. The railwood Dicey Riley, she will never give it up. It's off each morning to the park, and then she's in for another little drop on the heart of the railwood Dicey Riley.
Yeah, do you prefer live performance or studio?
Well, I'm not a great fan of the studio, but even though I love production. I love that side of it. And when I was in the business years ago, I produced a lot, and I really enjoyed bringing things together and getting some ideas. That was my favorite part of ever in the studio. The recording in the studio I find just a bit, sometimes just a bit clinical, you know, and you've got to do the click tracks and all that. But I think the next album will be my next album will be a solo album, and I think it'll be very relaxed. I'm going to bring a couple of people out. Sharon Howley has done a couple of gigs with me. We had a thing, Sharon and Tara, and we had a kind of gig on Mike Hanrahan with strings attached, and it was really nice. And I think that's where I'll go with the album. It'll be a nice acoustic kind of feel to it, maybe a bit of a kit in it as well. But I'll see how it goes. I'm much more relaxed in the studio. I have my own setup here for demos and that. So you kind of, the studio, I don't fear the studio like I used to, because I used to dread that going into the studio and, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to record. And the thing is with Gavin, I'm very relaxed in Gavin's company. So, and he can say anything to me and I can say anything to him, and we don't take offense to anything, except we all know that we're going to the right area. It's like if you co-write a song with somebody, you know, the first thing you do is leave the ego outside and you just work on the song, because that's the only reason you're there for it. So it's always a healthy way to work, I think.
Yeah. We had rule number 6 written up on the board at our last album. It's a comedy clip, and essentially rule number 6 is don't take yourself too seriously.
Yes, yeah. Because no one else does.
That's right. Yeah. And my God, ego causes so many problems, or can, you know. It's
oh God, yeah. It's yeah, man, it's crazy. I remember one time I felt like he came in and we set up a songwriting thing, and he came over to me and he came in the door and he says, before we start, he says, Mike, can we start out the publishing? And I said, what? I said, in fact, I said, but the publishing on what? And he says, on the song we're going to write, which there's no song there. I said, why would you be bothering yourself thinking about publishing when we've nothing written yet? And basically, what he just killed the whole vibe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because you don't think about money at all. That's not why you write. You know, I started out, I just write because I love writing. So I said, best thing we're doing, we'll have a cup of tea and you can go home then. So, so I never saw him again.
Now, a ham-fisted segue, speaking about making cups of tea, you wrote a book, brought it out at the end of last year. So tell us a little bit about that.
It was the nicest thing I've ever done in my life. When I was cooking for 10 years professionally, and I'd been in all sorts of kitchens, and at once I was trained in Ballymaloe as a went down there as a student, very old student, but I loved it. I fell in love, and I came back to Dublin, worked in a few restaurants, and then the job came up in cookery school in Ballymaloe as a teacher, so a trainee teacher. So I went down and did that. And I ended up 4 years in East Cork. One of them was full-time as a teacher. And then I ran a place for Pat Short. And that was really fantastic. We used all these amazing local producers, and they all appear in the book, these incredible producers in the area. And I was trained organic. So that's when we wanted to have a destination place for good food and good music. And I took over the running of the music in the pub, and I remember one time there was a fella, and he, I just had to think about it now. He was doing this gig, and I thought there was something very queer about what's going on the stage, because he had keyboards and he had guitars and he had microphones and huge sound. And I took one look at him, and I got up closer, and he was doing these solos and guitars. The fingers were nowhere near where he was doing it. So I said to him afterwards, I said, can you play the guitar? He said, no, I can't. I said, why are you doing it? I said, the crowd think it's great, he says. And I said, do you play the keyboard? Geez, no, that's all recorded, pre-recorded. I said, but you do sing. Oh, sometimes I sing, all right, he said. So we played in that night. We said, you need to find another venue. And so I took over the Ronnie gigs, and we brought some amazing musicians in. I remember Roy Buckley, I met him there. And it was Roy got me back singing on stage again, the great ballad singer from Cork. And I had all these experiences in cooking. I worked in a beautiful place in Dublin called the Arts and Parlour. Same thing, we used all local producers and created wonderful food. So when I was coming to my natural end in the cooking, because I was getting tired of it, and I wanted to go back playing music, I thought it'd be really nice to write a book about it, or write something. So I wrote a chapter about Ronnie Drew, about food and music. Because food and music have been like parallel lines in my life as long as I can remember. I've always loved cooking, and I've always loved music. So some people said I was crazy to write. And then I wrote a chapter and I sent it into the first publisher. A friend of mine gave me a list of publishers, and I had them from top right to the bottom. And I also started reading about how to self-publish. And for whatever reason, I went to the top with HarperCollins. And a guy there, Owen, the head of HarperCollins in Ireland, read it, and he rang me, says, I really like this. And I couldn't believe it. And within 2 weeks, I had a publishing deal. And he said, you probably need to get an agent. I said, sure, I don't need an agent. I said, give me a look at the contract. I said, we've signed all these record contracts. So we did it as a friendly handshake, and we signed the contract, and I went away and started writing, and they gave me an advance, which meant I spent hours every day. I'd get up at 4 a.m. and write all day long, and research and go back, and then I met all the people in my life I met that I wanted to write about, and the book was released, and I was so delighted. We had I didn't want any photographs of food in it, because there's a good few recipes, but there's great stories about the people I've met. So Charlotte O'Reilly is an Irish artist who lives in Amsterdam, and we got in touch with her, and she sent over a few sketches, and we said, yeah, let's go for it. So she draws these amazing illustrations that go right through the book. And then there's the stories of all the people I met, everybody, all the great people, Ronnie, Finbar, Maura, my mum and dad, my grandfather. And it was released in October, and I was so proud. The day I got the first book it was the proudest moment of my entire creative life. And then we were told that on Post we're shortlisting it as for Irish Published Book of the Year. I thought, oh, Jesus, hold on. So it has been really a beautiful, beautiful journey. Really, I couldn't say enough about what it has meant to me.
And is there a second book in you?
I've been dicing with it, because the publishers are asking me, and they're saying, will you? And I don't know. I'm doing a blog every day on Facebook. I might do that, but I'm also writing. I'm writing a musical, and I have all the songs, because I've a lot of songs written that will fit into the musical, and so it's kind of work of fiction. So it's really interesting. So I think I might concentrate on that as my next writing. I'm certainly doing that. I work at it here, just trying to write a fictional story, which I've never done before. So I guess that could be the next thing I'll write, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you don't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to put the feet up at any stage and go, well, that was great, thanks very much, I'm going to go and play golf and read stuff now.
No. That's not really an option. Then that doesn't cross my timeline at all.
No.
Why would you? Jeez, I lost a couple of friends in the last few years, and to cancer mainly. And I've done a few eulogies of my friends, and I think, when I'm here, I might as well make the best of it and enjoy it. And if there's something I can do, I'm going to do it. And that's why I love working with Eleanor, Shanley. I love working with Leslie. I love being back with the Wing. I love doing my book tours when we start. I love all that, So why would you stop? No, sure, I'm only a young fella.
Would you say you're restless?
Yeah, my wife would say so.
That's usually. If you want to know how I am, ask my wife. That's quite...
Donna would certainly say, yeah, you could be right there.
That's wonderful. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. I feel we could go on all day. There's so much. I mean, we haven't scratched the surface of stories, but people should go and buy your book because I believe there's fantastic stories.
Yeah, the book is. Let me see if I have a copy of it there. Look at that. See that?
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful book. Really, it's a beautiful production, and that's available online on Amazon or on HarperCollins if people want to buy it. I'd love you to buy it. And there's also the audio version, which I really enjoyed doing because I sang a few songs for the audio one, and that was great fun.
Wow! So
Yeah.
you narrated it yourself, yeah?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I should have to. I had to. I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't have an actor doing it. I mean, because the book is a very personal journey, very personal story.
And as you said yourself, sure, what else would you be doing?
Yeah, not less. I went up to Gavin, and he had a studio in the mountains, and I went up and spent a few days with Gavin, and we had a lovely time. And it was the first time I'd read the book. So it was the first time anyone else had read it apart from me and my publishers, because I was talking it. I could get the reaction from Gavin. You could hear him in laughing away and things. So it was a lovely experience. And then we decided to put a few verses of the songs that appear in the book onto this, and that was a nice touch.
Wonderful. So I'm excited to see what you come up with next, Mike. And when all of this lockdown and quarantine is over, I'm sure you'll be raring to go no more than the rest of us.
All of us, I think, will be that way. We'll be at the gate, and all of us we'll be like a herd of cattle, just and we'll all be off. And I'll never refuse a gig again. I don't care where it is. And if we declare, I won't even ask them where. I'll just be gone.
We had Kieran came and played a set of tunes with us in Whelan's last year. So we might do a wee Banjo 3 Stockton's Wing Night, and we could coax your brother Kieran back on stage with us.
Good luck with that one.
we could hoodwink him into it.
But I would certainly love to come and sing a couple of songs, Jim.
Yeah, it'd be magic.
Absolutely love it. Yeah. Oh, jeez, let's do that. I'd love it.
Yeah, wonderful. Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate your
time. My absolute pleasure. It's just a pleasure talking to you.
Before you go, you're on Facebook Live, is that right? Every day?
Every day during lockdown. I think tomorrow will be day 50. And I go on and I write some recipes in the morning for people who want to like bake or whatever, cakes or hot foods, and I research the recipes and I put them up, and then I write a little blog, and then at 1:07 every day, give them time to come back from the job and then sit down, have their bit of lunch, and sit down, and loads of people. There's hundreds of people on every day, and the interaction is amazing. And we do recipes, and then I sing a few songs, I tell stories, and
where can people find that at 1:07?
Mike Hanrahan 46 is my page.
Wonderful.
On Facebook, Mike Hanrahan 46.
Yeah, I'll pop up a link to that.
And I've recorded all of them up there, so they're all there. So if people want to watch 49 hours of Mike Hanrahan, it's all up there. Good luck to you.
Sounds good to me. Mike, thank you very much. Stay well and stay safe, and we'll see you after all of this.
A pleasure, and then you too. Say hello to all the crew.
We had it all. We had the best of times. We had a life that dreams are made of.
Wonderful. I really enjoy that. I spent 3 hours editing it, and I loved listening to it over and over. And it was great to listen to it again. A lovely, lovely man. Loads of great comments. So Mike's Facebook page is Mike Hanrahan 46, and at 1:07, which I was really tickled at, he's live every day doing recipes and singing songs. And his theory about 1:07 is that it gives people a chance to get home, make a sandwich, and sit down for lunch. So for the Americans, that's 1:07 p.m. Irish time. So that's breakfast time for you guys. Mike is great. I really enjoy that. Mike is a great character, and I loved playing with him back in the day. And look at me, 7:04, nearly on the hour. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm going to turn this on and off again because I really enjoyed it last week. Please do share it. We're going to take a break for next week. I think Dave is going to announce it on Sunday, but we've been doing this for 7 weeks. Really, really enjoying it, loving it. We need a break. We just need a week off to not be on social media for a week for our own mental health and resting and all of that kind of stuff. But it's just for a week. We will be back. I have loads of people lined up for chats for the next couple of weeks. And I'm loving this. And it's great to see all the comments. It's great to see everybody online really enjoying it. Yeah. Now, I have 3 tons of topsoil to put into a new flower bed that I made during the week. So I'm going to go and do that now. So we'll see you in... Fertile is on Friday. Fertile's Fiddling Fridays at the same time, 12 p.m. Central Time. And I'll be back here in 2 weeks' time. And I should mention that we Banjo 3 have some absolutely bonkers ideas for some Facebook stuff over the next couple of weeks or months, because we're going to be here for a while. But we have a couple of really, really exciting projects that we're going to launch fairly soon. So do stay tuned. I think you'll really enjoy them. And that's it for me. If you want, there's the PayPal WeBanjo3, and like and share. All right, guys, have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you when we talk to you.